Hey everyone, welcome back to the Inland Empire Coaches Talk. Today I'm with the head football coach from Redlands High School, Mr. Mike McFarland. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks.
So tell the folks a little bit at home about your background, coming to Redlands, your college career, etc.
I'm heading into my third season at Redlands High School. And prior to that, I spent about 11 or 12 years coaching college football, the Division II, Division III level, and another 10 years or so as a high school teacher and coach. I was a head coach at Temple City High School for 4 years and a head coach at Pasadena High School as well. So kind of split right down the line as far as experience at different levels.
So how has your experience been now that you've been at Redlands? Because I know moving from the Midwest myself to Redlands, it's Southern California is different for sure, but Redlands is very much old school Americana, which I love.
Yeah, I mean, I had never spent. I'm from Southern California. I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley in Arcadia, and so I spent the first or about 20, 21 years until I was about 30. I lived in that area, and I had never really been to Redlands. I had been to Redlands actually two times to coach games against the University of Redlands when I was coaching at Occidental, and that's it. I did know some people that had lived in Redlands, and it's a very unique place. It's a great place. It's got a nice mixture of like you said, kind of an older era, but it's a great community, and my family and I enjoy living here. And yeah, it's been it's great place for us as well as from a family standpoint, because we have family in Pasadena, we have family out in the desert, and we're kind of split right down the middle there, so it works out.
Oh yeah, the central location of Redlands, just in general, is amazing because you can get to the beach in an hour, you can get out to the desert in an hour, you can get to the mountains in an hour, saving LA traffic, of course, but
Right.
it makes it really easy. Um, so, talk a little bit about Redlands football for a minute, because obviously you came in from a coach that had been there since time immemorial. So, talk about Redlands High School now and the culture you're trying to build with the Terriers.
Well, the culture at Redlands High School to me is the strength, and I'm just trying to build on the culture of the school. The best thing about Redlands High School is the students that attend it and the teachers and the people that work there. It's a true public school from the standpoint of it's a great education. The teachers are very professional. They care. Students go there. The students who choose to go there in the city of Redlands do so to get a great education. And we try to build off of that in our football program. Taking guys that are looking for that true balance between being the best they can be in the classroom and then having the best football playing experience that they can have. And so, that's to me the best part about Redlands High School is that culture is already in place, and we're just trying to build off of that. And we've got some great kids in our program. That's the strength of our program is the players, and the character of our players, and the balance, the academic, athletic balance that those guys carry with them. And we've got some great coaches, and that part of the tradition that you mentioned, um, you know, with Jim Walker over the last 30 years or so, almost 30 years, is he left a legacy of some really good coaches and some guys that came with him, and he brought there that are good people and good coaches. And so, those are all the best things about Redlands, and I'm just trying to build off of those, and and help these guys be the best they can be.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, we are in odd times because we're in the middle of COVID. Um, how have you been interacting with your players? How have you been inspiring your players during the shutdown?
Um, we the first thing to me that was the most important when this whole thing kicked up. We were going on spring break. We have a 2-week spring break in the Redlands district. So we ended on that Friday where everything kind of started to stop, and then on the other side of spring break, the first week of April, our district started to roll out the plans for distance learning. And so for me, the most important thing from at that point was to try to help our players adjust and get what they needed so they could be successful in distance learning. And so as we got through, that portion of it, we learned how to meet virtually and do the Google Meet, deal. And we came up with some different ways to do that, try to make it beneficial. And the big thing, for me and our coaches was to try to keep as much connection as possible with our players, and just to make sure that we were able to try to connect with them and have those opportunities. And so we continued that through the end of May, and then picked it back up in June through the end of July, and then we'll resume here as we start school next week.
Perfect. So workouts right now, it's been interesting talking to Esteban and a little bit about how you can have one kid that's in full on weight room at home. Another kid has maybe a set of weights or P90X DVDs from his parents, and another kid lives in an apartment. How are you guys working out the physicality? Because obviously it's different being physically fit versus being football fit.
Right. Well, you kind of have to go to the lowest common denominator, and so what we did very early on in the process in the beginning of April, we have um, one of our assistant coaches who's been at Redlands High School for 25 years or so, a guy named Kevin Haw, is a fantastic strength and conditioning coach, and he went to work putting together a workout that a backpack workout at home. So basically, we cut it down to the thinnest slice and said, all right, kids that have no access to anything, they, like you said, they might live in an apartment, they got no space. And so he put together a workout, where you could load a backpack with resistance and do body weight type activity, and we tried to make it as practical and as simple as possible so everybody could do it, even though some of our players might have weight sets and things of that nature. But that's the big thing is just trying to keep the players, trying to make it as simple as possible, in times like this where things get out of whack and people's stress levels get all over the place. I think being simple and easy is important. And so we tried to make things as simple and easy for them to do as possible, and he did that, and he did a great job with it. And that's what we gave our players. And then of course we had some players that are creative and were able to figure out ways to do things on their own. But that's what we tried to do. And that was, our philosophy was make it as simple as possible.
Absolutely. And I think just the keeping kids active is the main thing, because it's so easy just to be like, okay, no, I'm going to watch Netflix right now, and I'm going to eat some snacks, and I'm on my Zoom classroom. But if you have that person holding your feet to the fire and having your brothers with you saying, no, we're still doing this together, because that's what sports is. It's a brotherhood and a sisterhood that's trying to build upon one another.
Right. And the mental health element of it is huge, for me as well. The idea that, you know, if, whatever disruption, you know, any of our lives or occurs in any of our lives, the opportunity to work out, to get to move, to sweat, can be a great assistance from a mental health standpoint.
Right.
And helping us to combat the stresses that, especially early on, nobody, now we've gotten into a bit of a routine with things, but early on, nobody knew what to expect. And those were things that were really important from that standpoint. I really tried, to think about mental health elements with our players, and try to start everything from the standpoint of what will help these guys deal with any sort of stress that they're incurring from a disruption to their lives. And working out's a big part of that.
Absolutely. The sweat therapy is a huge component. So now let's fast forward to, hopefully, now that they're starting. I mean, San Bernardino just said yesterday that we can start to, with physical distancing, bring people back. Um, what are we looking at now in November, December, once you can start really training your kids again? Are you still going to work to the lowest common denominator? Are we going to be putting guys into categories of fitness? What are you guys thinking as a staff?
Well, I mean, I think that, I think our district's going to be going through that process here in the very near future of how to try to get started. But, um, you know, ultimately, um, I think you almost have to reboot everything from when you can get with your players. So, when we are able to get in front of our players in any capacity, whenever that is, we will start from ground zero. My mentality about how things will occur is that it needs to be a gradual buildup. I think everybody, I don't think that's unique. I think everybody gets that. But it has to be a gradual buildup. We have to get our guys, we can't expect that, we're going to be able to ramp it up in a short period of time. So, whenever that opportunity occurs, obviously, if we're able to start working with our guys in the next few weeks or month, or that'll be a lot easier. If for some reason we get pushed out even further, then it becomes a lot more complicated if we're trying to go from doing nothing to preparing to, to play a game, then that would be problematic. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, I'm optimistic that as we get the opportunity to interact with our players in person, that it'll be, we'll have the time for a gradual buildup of activity.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at even the NFL right now trying to figure out what's going on because their mini camps and everything are half to two-thirds cut. They're not having a preseason, so it'll be interesting to see what the NFL ends up eventually doing for their build-up in a compressed schedule, much like high school and college athletics as well.
Right. And you look at professional sports, and a lot of those guys had opportunities to work out in whatever capacity, when things were shut down. And so, the baseline fitness levels of those guys was probably, significantly higher than what we will have, when our kids come back. And so, that's the most important thing is that, it's gotta, we got to do things in a safe and efficient manner, to make sure that we don't get started and all of a sudden we got to stop again.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that I think, as we look at, as districts, we're looking at how to implement, you know, uh, how to implement the transition to the start of school. All of these things have to be considered, but it's got to be something that can be sustainable. And so that gradual buildup, I think, is important.
Absolutely. I think tempering our excitement is 100% going to be the key to this because you're going to have some places like I saw a picture of Georgia and I was talking to my buddy who does athletics in Utah and he goes, we're starting next week. Like it's first game because we're full versus I don't think you're going to be able to have that in California where like Shut has their face shield now that they're trying to have the NFL wear. And you have players that are very mixed. Like I'm not wearing that
Yeah.
versus like I put in a thing for the Mountain West for all the umpires for masks and buffs to that it's going to be required by the NCAA that all officials must wear a mask or a buff just as a protection. This isn't going away. Like we're all going to be excited to be back out on the field, but we still need to do it with the idea that this can get shut down again very quickly.
Yeah. No, I mean, and you just, you look at, you look at Major League Baseball, and that's a great example, of the reality is, we're going to be, personally responsible, all of us, adults and, student athletes. The success of any sort of attempt to do more than we're doing now will be, very, very contingent on, the responsibility that we all take. And as coaches, I mean, obviously we're held to that standard to begin with, but our players, and their families, and that's a new element to the commitment of now of playing sports is it's not just about showing up to practice, and it's not just about being consistent with your attendance and and all these things. It's about actually being responsible for, the types of things that you're doing when you're not there. And that's a completely new deal. It's new for everyone. We're going to see how that goes when the colleges open up, and how that affects the Division I, football programs that are trying to play this fall. But you saw baseball struggle with it, and
Mhm.
and hopefully baseball is figured, but it all comes down to, how we interact with each other, and that's a completely new deal, man. We've never had to do this before.
I
Um,
mean, it's going to be a Herculean effort regardless. Like, take football out of the equation. Like, I was just talking to teachers, like, they're trying to figure out how they're going to be teaching 4 periods worth of education with a new technologies. Like, I've been teaching for 28 years and I'm back to day one of teaching.
yeah, no, that was, a big concern of mine from the as we were, as districts were talking about going back to school, as a coach, right, was the fact that, hey, I don't, we're going to all have to learn how to do school. And this was before they made the decision to do distance learning. So if we have to, we should, let's focus on trying to do one thing at a time. Give me a month or a few weeks at least to figure out how school's going to be, and then let's work on, football element of it. But I think that'll, we have now that football has been, the sports have been pushed back. Hopefully that will be, able to be done, and we'll be able to transition, in that way. I think it would have been very difficult for people to jump back into a new way of doing school and trying to play sports. And I know that around the country people are doing it, and I mean, I'm sure there'll be mixed results, but I think that'll be, that would have been a challenge had we not had this where we push sports off to the winter.
Yeah, and I mean, I had Commissioner White on last week, and just I applauded him for the leadership of it. We now have a date. We can now create a
Right.
plan because talking to y'all, it's been okay. I had plan A, B, C, D. I'm landing on G, maybe H at this point, but now at least I have a roadmap to a plan.
Well, and it makes sense. That's the other part, is when you try to force the issue, and then all it does is create more stress. And you're seeing that with like college football right now. Is they're clearly, those big Power 5 conferences are trying to, ram their season into the fall, and there's nobody knows how it's going to go. When you push it off, it doesn't mean, just because we have a date to start in December and play in January, it doesn't mean that, you know doesn't mean that it'll go off smoothly, but at least we have time, to really, plan, or learn more as we transition. And so just makes sense, and so I give him a ton of credit as well. I mean, it couldn't have been easy. It's such a fluid deal, and there's the southern section, I mean, is impossible. There's so many different regions of this, and it's different in all different kinds of places. And so to be able to canvas the whole region, or as much as possible, and come up with a plan like that, could not have been easy.
Absolutely. Now, the other thing that we've been talking about with a lot of athletic directors is field usage. So how, like, are we going to be putting up protective netting? Are we going to be trying to do a stacked schedule? Like, how do you see this working out? Because obviously soccer is going on at the same time. Like, there's going to be almost like, I go back to my old sports chalet days, and like that massive schedule of trying to figure out the floor plan of how it's going to work is a step on, and is everyone kind of working together with that? How do you guys attack that?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's ultimately, he's the point person as far as, there. Our biggest challenge at Redlands High School, because it's such an old school, is field space.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got, we've only got really one field that we can use from a football standpoint. And so, obviously soccer needs it, needs to use it, and track and field will need to use it. But yeah, that is a big issue, and it's especially a big issue for us. is having that. And to combat that, I think that one of the other problems that we have is we've got in our district, we've got kids that live all the way over close to the 215 freeway, off Barton Road. We got kids
Mhm.
that may have to ride the bus 10 miles just to get to our campus. And so, that as we try to stack schedules to use facilities, we got to be mindful of of those kids who if they have to practice in the evening, they may have to catch a bus at 9 o'clock to get home by 10:30. And we do have some of those guys on our football team, and so it's a challenge. And I know, for Esteban, it's something that he already spent a lot of time on and will continue to. But that's the biggest issue I think that we have, is that we don't have that space. And so, yeah, it'll be a challenge.
Absolutely. I was joking with another coach that we were interviewing earlier this morning that BSN should create custom team egg timers. Because you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like there could be a situation that if you had a playoff run, you could have one of your kids that also plays basketball and baseball, where he could be, in theory, trying to practice, play 3 sports, and go to school in a single window.
Yeah, honestly, Mike, I don't. That stuff doesn't really phase me or bother me, and for a couple of reasons. Number one is this is a completely unique, unconventional situation, and it really is about those guys, those student athletes. If our job as coaches should be to try to create opportunities for them to experience, the success that or the pursue the opportunities that they want to pursue, and especially given the scenarios that we're going to be facing here in the next few months. I really hope that we can do a great job as coaches of letting our guards down and really just letting the student athletes kind of do what they think they want to do. I mean, there's nobody that's ever navigated this path that can show anybody the right way to do it. But also, I was a multi-sport athlete in high school, and so that was how my summers were. I mean, I would have between practice and games, you have multiple games, and maybe a 7-on-7, a baseball game, a basketball game, practice in the morning. And so I think players know how to do that. And if they have the support from their families, and their coaches don't get in the way, I think we can make this successful for them. I think that that's it's I think that's what, as coaches, I hope that we can do a good job of, is understanding the unique situation that we're in, and that for a lot of these kids, and these kids have been sidelined for all this time, they haven't done anything. So the last thing we should do is try to stand in their way. There's a fine line between being careless and just trying to do too much. But at the same time, I think for these kids that do have the ambition and the capacity to take on multiple endeavors, this is a time when maybe we should encourage them to do that.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about CBL football. You have Beaumont joining with Jeff out there and his running gun offense. And we're going to be trying to do this in colder weather than what most SoCal kids are accustomed to.
I wouldn't worry. I mean, the weather in Southern California in January and February, yeah, I mean, it's basically great October weather in most of the country. So I don't foresee weather being an issue unless you have a particular rainy February or something like that. I don't think that there'll be much of a hiccup as far as what you see, or on the field. What I'm excited about is the fact that we're not limited by the heat. I mean,
Mhm.
this should be the one opportunity where you don't have to worry about the time of day that you're practicing or working out. And we have no limitations as far as we can't get on the field till a certain time because it's 117 degrees out on the turf or whatever that is. So I think that that's actually exciting, to think about, that we're going to be, playing football in much better weather.
Mhm. And also, I just love the idea of, I told this to one coach, I would hope, especially Redlands, because living there and everything else, that you get kind of that bowl holiday feel, that roll wave that you get from the holidays and everyone being in family and rolling into a season, I think can be infectious for a community. And I'm
Well,
hoping that it really rolls into football season.
yeah, I don't think you're gonna have to worry about that. I honestly, if things progress and and this season's able to take place as it's scheduled, I don't think that you're gonna have to anybody's gonna have to worry about that type. I think there's going to be so much juice as it is just to get started and to have something to do, and to be able to
Mm-hmm.
play. I think that there's going to be an energy that you haven't seen from high school football in a long time, just because it's been we've been on hiatus, for months, and so I think that just the opportunity to go out and play will be enough to bring a great energy. I think it's something that nobody knows, what it's going to look like or how it's going to feel, but I think it, has the potential, of course, to be something really, really fun.
Absolutely. Now, and obviously you are reaping the benefits as well because you don't have to go out to Palm Springs when it could be 115 degrees either.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, it is, it's just nice. Weather is the one thing. It's always, equalizer. It doesn't affect anybody any different. We all have to deal with it, but it does make those games when you're going out to the desert. And honestly, from my perspective, that when I think about scheduling practice, in December and over Christmas break, you're not having to schedule practice early in the morning or late or in the evening. You can sit there and say, hey, we can practice at you know 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Be out there when the sun's out. If we needed to practice in the afternoon, we could practice at 1 o'clock. That's not going to be an issue, and that's nice. It's nice to know that we don't have to base things off of the heat.
I was talking to one coach and he goes, if the district will let me, I'm definitely going to have a turkey bowl with my kids this year.
Yeah, everything's in play.
So looking forward to your schedule. If you have one weekend that you're circling and you're excited about as a coach, which one is it this year?
As far as the season,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to cliche you to death, but the reality is, you know, all of the games are special.
Mm-hmm.
Football is the one sport, where we only play, you know, we're guaranteed 10 games. Hopefully we
Mm-hmm.
play. That's what we're guaranteed. Yet, you know, we we prepare year round. And
Mm-hmm.
although this is obviously different this year, what that basically means, and I think everybody knows this, even people that don't play football know this, is that football games are sacred, especially Friday, high school football games, Friday night with the lights on. And it's just such a special environment. And so, you know, obviously on our schedule, the Rev game is always, there's a great energy with that game. And with Citrus Valley as well, and those games are special, more special than the others because they're the district games, and the kids all know each other, and those types of things. But I'm just, I the 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 unique opportunity to play on a Friday night, and the way that you're able to remember each, those games so much better than, like a sport like basketball or baseball, where you know during your season you're going to play, well, maybe not this year, but in a typical season you play 30-35 games,
Mm-hmm.
but then you're playing, travel ball, and you know those guys play games year round, and the games can kind of blur together. So to me, that's the one thing about football that's unique, is that each game, no matter who the opponent is, each game, brings its own energy because they're rare. We work so hard, so long for those opportunities, and we only get a select few. Um, so that's how I look at it.
Absolutely. And I think professional sports are starting to see that, like with baseball only being 60 games instead of 162. basketball with a restart, the Lakers are 2-2 as of today. They're like, oh, what's going on? And people are overreacting because you have such a smaller window. And so
Yeah.
it amplifies it by that much more. And
Right.
with you guys only having that very small window, it is a an event on every single occasion.
Right. Absolutely. That's the uniqueness of football. And on the other side of it, is the months that you go without competing, without that opportunity to compete in that environment, and there's no there's no 7-on-7, tournament or lineman competition, or, anything that can come close to matching that. And that's the difference. Again, other sports, what's the difference between a travel ball game, in baseball, and, a league, a CBL game? Well, probably there'll be a few more people in the stands for a CBL game, but it's still a baseball game with umpires and, and probably a scoreboard. But football, you can't emulate it in another circumstance. You can't imitate it. And that's, it just holds those games and those game days, they hold so much, they hold so much energy. And they're all sacred. I think you can't look past, any of them, or diminish any of them as being any less important than another. Although, we all know that some are. you know but that's generally, because other people put those types of expectations on it. But I think, you know that's how I try to approach it.
Absolutely. So now we've gone into the season. We've gotten through our 10 games. How are you looking at marketing your players? Is there any difference because of the schedule, or how is that looking for getting your kids to the next level?
I mean, there's a lot of unanswered questions regarding the recruiting process, for colleges. We have, on our football team, we've got some great, some really, really, really good senior kids, that, hopefully will have some opportunities to play. A lot of them it could be small college football. And how those, everybody knows about the Division I schools, and things may not change very much, for a Power 5 conference as far as recruiting goes. But when I look at the seniors that we have and trying to help them, get opportunities. We don't really know how that window changes for some of the smaller schools. Will their signing days be changed? Will they have multiple signing days? Or opportunities to sign players. In other words, extend the scholarship, recruiting period. Um, who knows? So I'm not really, too concerned about that. Those things will tend to sort themselves out. And the other part of it is there's really not a lot we can do about it. We can't circumvent that process right now. And so, when more information comes out as far as, how the recruiting periods might change, if they do, then maybe we can take some action there. But, in general, I would just expect things to you know expect even the Division II schools, to extend and maybe not offer as many scholarships until later on. Maybe the NCAA will, if more states play in the spring or have incomplete fall seasons, maybe the NCAA could extend a signing period, later into the spring, so colleges have an opportunity to get more of a look at kids in their senior years. We'll see. Who knows?
Here's hoping. I mean, I know the West Coast now, you're up to, I think it's 5 or 6, save Utah, that have all decided to basically push everything back. I heard today on a call that Nevada is trying to do 6 games, or excuse me, 6 weeks
Yeah.
for each season. So it's definitely a moving target at best.
Yeah. And ultimately, when you get into the recruiting process, each player, each student athlete, it's has their own experience. And I think what I try to do is try to help, the guys, figure out what they want. and then how to create that opportunity. I don't think that there's one blanket solution for all, for all of our players. So the ones that want to continue to go on and play, we look at, okay, what are your options? What are your opportunities? What do you want to do in college? What do you want to go to college for? And then how do we match those things? And I don't think there's going to be one uniform way to answer that question.
Perfect. So last question that I always ask all my coaches: if you could tell your players, fans, community, staff one thing right now during this COVID pandemic, what would it be?
If I could tell them one thing, honestly, I think to go back to what we talked about earlier, which is, I think that, I think that if anything, what this experience of going through, the change in our lives for most of us over the last few months, hopefully what it will heighten is the need to really make this experience, this high school sports playing experience about serving the kids, serving the players, serving the student athletes, and I hope that as coaches and as administrators and all of the stakeholders involved in a community and in a school involving high school sports, I hope that we're able to do that as much as possible, that we're able to make this about helping our players have the best possible playing experience, because ultimately, it's as coaches, administrators, etc. If you sit in the positions long enough, you just keep recycling. Coming, new players come in, players leave, new players come in. But for these kids, this is it. For our seniors, we've got a tremendous group of seniors. Great, great, great kids. And the thing that I try to remind myself of, all the time when we're dealing with, the how to proceed forward, is how do we make this as great as possible for those kids. We really want to make this experience for them the best that it can possibly be. And that's, I hope, what will lead us in as far as how we make decisions moving forward, is what's going to lead to those outcomes. Um, hopefully that we can get close to that.
Absolutely. I love the focus. I love the scope of that message. Mike, thanks so much for being on the program. If anybody would like to be on the program, please reach out. Be safe. God bless.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mike. Yep.